Hey, it's Alpha Bob, back with another video. Welcome to day 2 of our Nullsec adventure. Now that we're allowed to move between systems, the most important thing for staying safe is still the sensor booster. As alpha players, we don't have access to cloaks, so this setup is the next best thing. With a gravimetric sensor strength of 39, about 99% of ships won't be able to scan you down with combat probes. Hunters may still see your ship on D-scan, but as long as you're at a safe bookmark with your sensor booster active, you're effectively invisible to most scanners. Keep your maximum targeting range above 65 kilometers. This makes running Relic Sites faster, since you can target all the cans without flying around. Make sure your scanning probes have at least 72 base scan strength. That way, you'll be able to nail down level 4 Relic Sites consistently. With this Heron fitting, you'll hit all of those numbers, giving you the tools you need to explore null space safely and profitably. Now we undock from Jita and head straight to a safe bookmark where we can use our filaments to jump into Nullsec.
Warp drive active.
These filaments are the safest way for alpha players to get in and out of Nullsec, without needing to risk traveling through long chains of gates. I'm getting ready to activate the needlejack filament. First, I double-check that my safety setting is set to partial safety. Next, I need to be in a fleet, even if it's just me. So I open the center HUD menu, click on Pilot, then select Form Fleet With. That creates a one-man fleet, which is all that's required. Now I click Activate on the filament, which starts the 30-second countdown before the jump gate spawns. Since we're in HiSec, there's no danger waiting here during the timer. Once the gate appears, I click Activate Gate, and that launches us into Nullsec. The very first thing to check in any Null system is the local chat window. Here, I see I'm the only pilot in system, so it's safe for now. Still, I immediately warp to a planet to create a bookmark for safety.
Active.
There are 3 cosmic signatures in this system, so while I'm warping, I go ahead and deploy my scanning probes.
Warp drive
By the
active.
time I arrive at my new bookmark, I'm ready to start scanning. Before I settle in, I activate my sensor booster. This is absolutely critical, because a hunter could jump into system at any moment while I'm distracted scanning. With my fit boosting me to 39 gravimetric sensor strength, I'm effectively invisible to hunters trying to probe me down at my bookmark. Remember, the sensor booster is an active module, which means you have to reactivate it every single system you enter. Now I start the scanning process, centering on a planet near one of the signatures. This one turns out to be a Relic Site. I recenter the probes on the signal and drop the scan range by 2 levels. As your scanning skills improve, dropping by 2 at a time will help you scan down sites much faster. Great, we've got a Relic Site, and still no one in local. Since I like to multitask, I start another scan before warping to the site. When you find a Relic Site in an empty system, it's best to run it quickly, before anyone new enters. Also, it's usually smart to recall your scanning probes, so other players don't immediately know you're an explorer. Once I enter the Relic Site, I fly toward the ruin container. Because my targeting range is over 65 kilometers, I can select all 6 containers at once. That's a huge time saver, and it keeps things organized so I don't forget which cans I've already checked. While scanning the containers, I notice another signature, a level 3 data site. Normally, I'd skip data sites since they don't pay as well as Relic Sites. But I'm curious if this one might be a ghost site, so I'll check it out later. Now I start cargo scanning the relic containers. I usually skip anything worth less than 2 million ISK. This one is worth 24 million ISK. So I mark it with an X using fleet tags. The rubble container is also worth hacking, so I'll go for that one too. I begin the hack. But I immediately run into blocks on both sides, each one costing me 40 health. I pick one direction, and I get blocked again. Another block, and at that point, I give up and start my second hack attempt. Remember, each container gives you 2 tries before it blows up. If you fail both, the can is gone, but your ship takes no damage. On this run, I make a bunch of mistakes and get a streak of bad luck. Sometimes hacks are just too tough to crack. No big deal, I still have other cans to go after. The next hack is much easier. And sure enough, the data site turns out to be an improved Angel Covert research facility, also known as a ghost site. I decide to scan down the last signature before committing to more hacking. There's still no one in local, but I should warp back to my bookmark to be safe. You should always keep an eye on local chat, but it's easy to miss when a new player enters the system. Finally, I warp back to my bookmark.
Warp drive active.
This signature proves difficult to pin down, which usually means it's a level 4 or 5 site. The signal needs to be above 25% before you will see the level and type of site. Eventually, I identify it as a level 4 data site. and then above 75% before you can see the site name. It could have been just a standard pirate data site, but it turns out to be a limited sleeper cache. These can be worth 20 to 50 million ISK. The only problem is that they require more than 72 probe strength to fully scan down. Later on, as a maxed out alpha player, you can fly an Astro, and with it, you'll be able to complete all the sleeper cache sites safely. The superior sleeper cache in particular can pay out more than 100 million ISK. The best I can do with my 72 probe sensor strength is 93%. Time to give up on this one. Just for educational purposes, I'm going to warp into this covert ghost site. When you click warp, you'll see a warning pop up about the dangers inside. You do have a brief window to cancel the warp if you change your mind, but there's no danger in simply flying into the site and looking around. What is dangerous, though, is attempting any hacking here. For beginner pilots, that is strictly forbidden. Ghost sites are designed to punish mistakes hard. Some experienced players will use a cargo scanner, pick just one container to hack, and then get out fast. But even then, if they fail the hack, they lose their ship on the spot. On top of that, there's an invisible timer ticking down. Once it runs out, a fleet of NPC ships will arrive. They'll warp scramble you in about 10 seconds, which means you won't be able to escape. For now, I'll just show you what these 4 containers would be worth if looted successfully. Now it's time to show you what to try on day 2 of your adventures in Null space. Since I haven't seen anyone in local yet, the first thing I'll do is open up the map window. This is a really handy tool to see if there are any pilots in the nearby systems. Right now, it's looking very quiet around here. I also like to check if there are pilots currently docked, and then I'll look at any recent kills in the area. These 3 filters can all be found in the statistics group of the map. Just remember, when you're finished, set the filter back to pilots in space. That's the most useful view when planning your route system to system. Since the surrounding systems are all empty, I'll open the agency window. From here, I go into exploration, and then select cosmic signatures. The system I'm in has 3 signatures, which we've already scanned. But I can see that a nearby system has 5 signatures, so I'll set that one as my next destination. I'll keep scrolling down and look for other systems with signatures, adding them as waypoints. Once I have a few lined up, I've built myself a route. At this point, my route shows 19 jumps. But if you click on the little A next to the route and select Optimize Route, the game will rearrange your waypoints into the shortest path. Now my 19 jumps are cut down to just 10 jumps. The idea here is to create a route that lasts as long as your filament timer. By the time you've finished it, you can decide whether there are enough relic sites to keep exploring this region, or if it's time to use another filament and jump into a fresh region. Keep in mind, in Null space the most dangerous moments are when you're traveling through gates. Eventually, you will land in a warp bubble, and without a cloak your chances of survival are slim. But that's just part of the explorer's life. Dying in EVE Online happens to everyone from time to time. The good news is, the ISK you make from Relic Sites will more than cover your ship losses. And honestly, those close calls and the occasional loss? They add a little extra excitement to your adventure. In each new system with signatures, the process is pretty much the same. We warp to a safe bookmark, turn on our sensor booster, and start scanning down every signature in the system. Even though we're safe from combat probes in this fit, it's still smart to keep an eye on local chat. If a new pilot enters the system, you want to know right away. You'll also notice me clicking the directional scan, D-scan, out of habit. It's not strictly necessary here, but it's a good habit to build. Sometimes you might miss someone popping into local, but you'll catch their probes or ship on D-scan instead. Now, if you're new to exploration, I recommend running every site you find, including the data sites. Personally, I usually skip data sites since I find them not worth the time, but they're a great way to practice your hacking skills early on. Once scanning is finished, we move on to the next system. In my case, my filament timer is already up, so I could just filament again, but since things are quiet here, and I already scored one relic site, I decide to stay a little longer and see what else pops up. Sure enough, more signatures show up. And here's the important part. If I had run those two earlier data sites, that would have delayed me by 5 to 10 minutes, and in that time another explorer could have snatched these relics. That's why I prioritize relic sites whenever I can. Excellent, another relic site. I'll scan it quickly and jump to it before anyone else arrives. And here's a tip for when you're starting out. Recall all your probes while hacking. That way you can focus on the minigame, and anyone passing through might not even realize you're there. Once you land on the relic site, the process is straightforward. Burn towards the first container with your microwarp drive, select all the cans, and start cargo scanning them one by one. Use fleet tags to mark the high-value containers with an X so you don't forget. Now, some people get upset about cherry-picking relic sites, only taking the best containers and leaving the rest. And it's true, if you don't clear the whole site, it can hang around in space for a few hours before despawning. But here's my take: in quiet regions, cherry-picking is simply more efficient. I make more ISK by focusing only on the best loot. Plus, when I stumble on a half-finished relic site myself, I know another explorer has already been through, which is usually my cue to filament out and try my luck somewhere else. I'm now flying back to my bookmark so I can finish scanning this second relic site. Quick reminder, recall your probes if you're not comfortable multitasking both scanning and hacking at the same time.
Warp drive active.
Once again, we'll select all the containers and run a cargo scan on each one. This relic site actually turns out to have some pretty good loot. Every so often, you'll come across containers worth over 50 million ISK. That's when your heart really starts racing as you try not to fail the hack. Remember, you get 2 chances to complete each hack. As your exploration skills improve and your confidence grows, moving up to an Astero ship will take your ISK-making potential to a whole new level. Yes, the fitting can cost between 100 to 200 million ISK, but just a few superior sleeper cache sites will more than pay for the ship. Those sites can't be scanned in a Heron, so upgrading eventually makes a big difference. I'll let the video run longer here, so you can watch me work through these containers. After this, I'll finish scanning the remaining 3 cosmic signatures in the system, and we'll hunt down and hack one more relic site. I'll also add markers in the video so you can skip ahead if you'd like. Toward the end, you'll see 2 other players enter the system. That's our signal. As new explorers, we should head back into high security space and safely sell off our loot. If you've watched this far, please subscribe if you haven't already, it really helps out. And if you don't make it to the end, then happy hacking.
Drive active. Drive active.
Alright, we've got a new player entering the system. Now, here's the mindset you should always keep. Assume every player you see is a hunter who wants nothing more than to destroy your ship. I decide to keep hacking while watching D-Skin closely. But if you want to play it safe, you should warp back to your bookmark and wait until that pilot leaves, or at least until you know what type of ship they're flying. Until then, you are in danger. There's always a small chance the other player has already scanned down this relic site and is cloaked up right next to me. The odds are slim, but it's still possible. That's the nature of exploration, risk versus reward. Now that he's gone, we can continue hacking. But keep in mind, just because he left the system doesn't mean the danger is over. He could be waiting on the other side of a gate, hoping to catch us. So, to play it safe, I'm planning to finish up here and then use a filament to jump out.
Drive active. Warp drive active. Warp drive active.
And another player just entered the system. My original plan was to use my filament to jump back to high security space. But now I have to assume this guy is hunting. Dropping a filament gate takes 30 seconds to activate, and in that time, he could scan it down with combat probes. If that happens, I'd have to warp away and abandon the gate. Keep in mind, if you fly more than 30 kilometers away from your filament gate, it disappears. That's why you should always carry more than one filament. This guy isn't leaving, so I'm waiting it out. Trust your gut. If you sense danger, you can always log out. You'll need to turn off your sensor booster for the 30-second timer, but the other player won't be able to tell you're logging out. Now, if you drop a filament gate, that will show up on their D-scan. So in this case, I have to assume he's watching me.
Warp drive active. Warp drive active.
Finally, he leaves, so I activate my home 5 Pochven filament. After 30 seconds, I jump into Triglavian space. Think of this space like a wormhole, but with a lot more players. In Pochven, no one shows up in local unless they actually type something in chat. To stay safe, I immediately create a bookmark by warping to a planet. Once there, I activate my sensor booster, making myself safe from combat probes, and I wait out the 15-minute filament timer.
Warp drive active. Warp drive active.
When the timer is up, I activate a Glorification 1 filament. This returns me to a known space system near a trade hub, most likely Jita. But this last step is also dangerous. Activating the gate has a 60-second countdown, and if someone is watching with combat probes, they can catch you. If you see probes while the gate is charging, warp away. You'll lose the filament, but that's why we always carry extras. And if you spot combat probes before activating the gate, the safer move is to log out and come back later. Keep spamming that descan button. A good hunter can have combat probes ready and know your general location well enough to scan your filament gate in just one scan. If that happens, you'd only have seconds to react. Now we make our final jump. Best case scenario, we land in high security space, only 4 jumps away from Jita. From here, it's smooth sailing. We can safely fly the rest of the way and sell our loot. If you made it this far, thanks so much for the support. And as always, happy hacking.
Drive active. Drive active. Drive active. Drive active. Autopilot engaged. Autopilot. Docking permission requested. Docking request accepted. Autopilot disabled. Waypoint reached.